So, ladies and gentlemen, as we speak, the coronavirus is creating uncertainty in public life as well as in our industry of travel and tourism. Trade shows and exhibitions and events generate a considerable impact on the local economies and in particular contribute to and has substantial impact on the whole tourism value chain. Exhibitions and events attract high share of business travelers, generating domestic and international travel streams. And by some estimates, 19% of tourism spending was done by business travelers in 2019. So let's get started. I'm pleased to introduce to you today Mr. Kai Hattendorf, CEO of UFI, the Global Association of the Exhibition Industry. UFI is the leading global association of the world's trade show organizers and exhibition center operators, as well as the major national and international exhibition associations and selected partners of the exhibition industry. Welcome to our Recovery Town Hall, Kai.
Thank you, Sumaira. I'm very happy to spend this time with you.
Thank you and welcome. 50,000 exhibition industry employees, 52 national and regional association members, 795 member organizations in 88 countries and counting, and more than 900 and nearly 1,000 international trade fairs proudly bear the UFI label, a quality hallmark guaranteed for visitors and exhibitors alike. Never before the word quality has mattered as much as it matters now. But the industry has now almost come to a standstill because of the COVID-19 and is now having a ripple effect in all the periphery and support industries. What's the outlook for exhibitions and trade shows moving forward? And how is your organization responding to the current situation?
Wow, you're going in with a big crystal ball question. What will the future bring? The future, the only thing that is certain right now is that on the other side of this COVID-19 pandemic, there will be trade shows, there will be business events, there will be the need of people to come together to meet on marketplaces and meeting places, because it has been like this throughout the ages. This is one of the marketplace is one of the stepping stones of societies, of civilization itself. And as such, as an industry, we for sure have a major role to play to connect the markets, to connect the sectors, to connect people around the world again post-COVID as well. And we are arguing when we talk to the authorities, to the policymakers, to the global leaders through these difficult weeks. We are arguing with them to see this critical role that exhibitions and business events play. We are not like any mass gathering. It's a difference whether you are organizing a concert for 50,000 people in a stadium or whether you are holding a major trade show where 50,000 business professionals are meeting over 5 days. Right. And we are not arguing that for the sake of our own industry, but because of the role that trade shows play as the marketplaces and the meeting places for everyone. In essence, what we will need after this pandemic to get our economies restarted, to get business back to normal, is buyers and sellers to meet. And our industry, the trade show and the exhibitions and events industry, stands ready to build and operate these marketplaces and meeting places.
Thank you. So, in essence, what you are saying is that it's essential. Those face-to-face meetings are absolutely critical for any industry, any business going forward. And you've got your organization covers a whole vista of trade shows. It's not just travel and tourism related. Am I right? Your membership?
Yes. No, of course. The organizers of shows like the IBTM, like the IMEX, they're all members of our association, but just as well of the CES in Las Vegas, the world's biggest consumer electronics show, or the Hanover Messe in Hanover as the world's largest industrial fair. So essentially all the organizers of trade shows for all the sectors around the world are covered by our association.
Okay. 4th June 2020, it was your Global Exhibitions Day for 2020. This Global Exhibition Day has become the single largest day of awareness and advocacy for the exhibitions industry. Tell us about it, and how did it go this year in the face of the lockdown?
Well, this was the 5th time we were organizing this day of advocacy and awareness for the global exhibitions and business events industry. And obviously what we would have done in a normal year would be to hold events to celebrate events, would be to bring people together to show what happens when people come together for business and for the exchange of knowledge and wisdom. This core element, this experience was taken away from us for this year. So we had to rely on screen to screen as you and I are communicating right now.
Right.
But the industry rose to the challenge. We had, and we are still counting because it technically ended a little over 24 hours ago with the last time zone closing Global Exhibitions Day. Right. We have calculated an aggregated reach of the messaging around Global Exhibitions Day of 715 million people.
Wow.
That's, I think, about as many people as were watching the moon landing, right? This is the number of people around the world that were receiving and acknowledging messaging around the role of our industry on Global Exhibitions Day earlier this week. We had thousands of original pieces of content being shared, videos, online webinars, some comments on social media. What we asked the industry to do was to stand up, all our colleagues around the world, in many ways stand up and be counted, show that we are a global industry and show that we are ready to kickstart business again. And also, the hero is always the customer, right? So what matters is that people know about an IBTM show, that people know about an IMEX show, they know about the shows. But the industry that's behind, all the people putting the show together, all the people running the venue, all the people building the stands, all the people providing the food and beverage, all this whole ecosystem is our industry. And we refer to it as an invisible giant because it is not our job to be in the spotlight. It's the job for the shows, for the customers to receive the spotlight. So we use Global Exhibitions Day to make, as we say, make this invisible giant visible. And it worked really, really well this year. And I want to, again, congratulate each and every colleague all around the world who came up on that day and helped to spread the message that we are an important industry and that we are ready to kickstart business.
That's very encouraging, because when I was talking to a few people and in the industry and saying that I will be talking to you, and they said, ask this question, that how that experience of online trade show is as compared to on the ground. And of course, there's absolutely no comparison, but given the circumstances, I think it was necessary. And I know I've been talking around, it was really well received. And thank you so much for you putting those efforts and leading by example here, because a lot of organizations are looking at UFI to lead the pathway, which brings me to my next question. I believe that on 23rd May, Hong Kong hosted its first live exhibition since the outbreak. And I believe it was a wedding show in the Hong Kong Asia Exhibition Center. And it was a purely consumer exhibition, and the organizers put in place a number of precautions, including health declaration forms that every visitor was required to fulfill, temperature checks, of course, and anybody who was not the right temperature, 37 centigrade, was denied entry. Any person under quarantine or wearing electronic wristband was denied entry. An intelligence disinfection robot was disinfecting the halls. Is this the future of trade shows? Is UFI advocating its own safety protocols in the face of this pandemic?
COVID will change the way we do events in all elements, in all segments of the business events in the MICE industry. It is changing the security protocols, it is changing the health and safety procedures. It's a change you can probably compare to the change we saw after 9/11, when physical security became a necessity. And venues and organizers evolve their protocols around it. Right now, what we are all working on is to identify the right level of health and safety measures to make sure we can keep people safe. This is an industry that serves the people. It is an industry that connects people. So quite rightly so, the most important task we have as an industry is to keep people safe when they meet. So they can come to a trade show, they can come to an event, knowing that the precautions are in place for them to feel safe, to go about their business.
So are you following, are you leading, or are you following certain protocols laid down by EU or WHO? Where are you getting your standards and your research from, or are you just creating your own?
Well, first of all, we've been in dialogue with the WHO and other institutions right from the start of the whole pandemic, listening to their advice and basically disseminating their guidances, like the guidance for mass gatherings. At the same time, we have been eager to give feedback, to explain that the term of mass gatherings for every type of meeting is a little difficult. Because all kinds of meetings are different. And in the latest version of these guidance from the WHO that was published a few days ago, the WHO is acknowledging that. They're saying there are organized mass gatherings and there are spontaneous mass gatherings. And they are, as a health organization, acknowledging the psychological, the physical, and the economic dimension of events. And they're actually calling on the authorities to make a proper judgment call when they discuss to allow or not to allow an event to take place. At the same time, it is clearly the responsibility of us as an industry to go to the authorities and convince them and show them what we are able to deliver to make sure that an event is safe. And on that, we've worked with all the leading organizers in the world, with the biggest venues all around the world, with the biggest suppliers and many of the national and regional exhibition industry associations to develop the UFI Global Framework. Now, this is a list of around 30 measures that we advise everyone to use when you talk to the local decision makers. Because very rightly so, there cannot be a one-size-fits-all. Right. Regulations are different from country to country, social behavior is different from country to country, and legislation and the implementation of measures are different from country to country. So no, there can be no one rule to rule them all. So that's why we developed a framework. And we have followed up on that framework with our friends from AIPC, because this is bigger than the exhibitions industry. AIPC, the Association for the Convention Center Managers, and ICA, our friends from the Congress organizers side. And together then filled this framework with good practice examples and emerging standards where we see them in this document we released a few days ago. All with the intention to go to the politicians, to go to the lawmakers, to go to the local authorities and say, look, this is what we will do to make sure the event is safe if you let us do the event.
Okay, and this is called the UFI Global Standards. So, sorry, can you just name the document?
It's the UFI Global Framework.
Global Framework.
Because there can't be one standard, because the implementation is on a different level.
Okay.
And based on this UFI Global Framework document, we have released a good practice guidance to implement the measures of this framework.
Okay, great.
And here comes the plug. You can all download it from the UFI website.
Okay, okay, great. No, thank you for sharing that, because I think we are living in a global village right now, and we need to help everybody. It's just like the vaccine has to be shared around the world. These best practices are absolutely critical. You know, you don't know where you're helping. You know, maybe somebody sitting in Bali or Australia or South America listening to you, you know, will pick up on this, and this is very essential.
No, you're right, because we are, if I may, we are all in this together.
Absolutely.
And what is the amazing thing about the members of UFI, when we discussed whether what we produce as materials, as research, as insights throughout COVID should be something we keep into the membership. Everybody agrees, no, this is bigger than us.
Yes.
Please distribute it to the industry, make it available, because not every member around the world has the resources to come up with a terminology with standards by themselves. So again, feel free to use the material we put out. It is there to be used by everyone. We are all in this together, and as an industry, if we don't stand united in what probably is the biggest challenge the mice industry has faced in at least your and my lifetime, we will lose. We will lose a lot more than we will gain.
Thank you. You're right there. So since you're based in EU, your headquarters are in France, among the instant measures made available are credits and tax deferrals to help out with liquidity. These, of course, are welcome. However, given the rough idea of starting activity again after the summer only, they perhaps are not sufficient. The exhibitions and events ecosystem needs more and longer support in form of direct subsidies. What is your advice to various governments helping the trade show industry with any financial incentives, waivers, grants, etc.? And when do you foresee when the turnover will be back to earlier levels so there is some return on investment?
The return on investment begins, frankly, on day one of the public investment. The industry is very simple to understand. It's a small industry that produces a huge multiplying effect. So for every euro you spend in the exhibition itself, more than 10 euros
multiplier effect. Yeah.
10 euros are generating economic value. And this is something that policymakers easily grasp. What is needed right now, as this industry is driven by so many small and medium enterprises, have in mind that while this is a huge global industry, the biggest player in former markets has a market share of around 5.5% of the global exhibitions market. So this is a very, very wide array of players, many family-run businesses, very small and medium enterprises. And they are running into cash flow problems, obviously, especially on the service provider side, the stand constructors, the stand builders, the suppliers. So we need them in the ecosystem to get through months of no revenue. So here we need the governments to step up with short-term liquidity support, ideally not with loans, but with subsidies to make sure we get these colleagues through this dark patch. Then on the other side, as shows we start, this investment will pay off 10 times with money being generated, business being generated in the country, in the region, in the city where the show takes place. Now, when will that be? That depends on the outbreak, and it depends on the easing of travel regulations. I personally have not been in the UFI office now for 3 months. I've been in Germany, and the border to France has been closed, and there has been no trains. Wow. I will go back to France for the first time in little under 2 weeks. So as travel becomes possible again, and the borders will reopen in mid-June. And as the borders reopen, the trade will start flowing again. And we are looking at the return of trade shows in major European markets now for September onwards.
Okay.
And then the business will be generated again. Until then, we will need this liquidity support from the governments. We will need the support for partial unemployment fees to retain our staffs. And but again, compared to so many other industries, it will pay off 10 times at least.
Great. And in Germany, I believe the trade shows are already opening up, right? The German Trade Show Association, they've been one of the first ones. So again, I think Europe is leading in this case. So support from the governments is one thing, but what measures and concessions can the private companies or industry at large make on their level to encourage to see apply measures that helps with incentives to their participants to travel, exhibit, and participate again, the exhibitors, the buyers?
This is very simple. If the right exhibitors are attending a show, then the buyers attend the show.
Absolutely.
And the key is to make it possible. The key is again the travel. This year we will not see huge global marketplaces. I would love to go to Hong Kong to see a show. I would have loved to see that B2C show, even though I'm happily married and don't need any wedding materials. I couldn't go to Hong Kong because there were no flights. I would have to go into 2 weeks of quarantine if I would have made it. So these travel is just not possible. So the shows that we will see in the next weeks and months will mainly be national, major shows within China, major shows we saw in South Korea, and you mentioned Hong Kong. Another show in Korea just closed its doors yesterday. And after that, we will see shows in Europe. And these German shows that are scheduled for September, October, they will have a European audience. And likewise, I hope the shows in Spain will start again. Poland has reopened, Greece has reopened. I learned literally 2 hours ago that Bulgaria will reopen. Okay. Denmark has reopened. So these shows in these markets will draw on their home country and the surrounding countries. And from there, we will regrow the attendance. So when you ask me what is the strongest incentive to bring the buyers back, the visitors back to the shows, it is to do the shows because the sellers will be there. And just as much as they're looking for orders, the buyers are looking to buy.
Okay, but I was specifically asking, that any hosted buyer programs, some subsidies for them to attend, some waivers of fees and all. I think the industry will have to work on it together, right? It's, some of those rates for trade shows, I know that it's become exorbitantly expensive, to attend or participate in a trade show as an exhibitor, because especially the travel and tourism trade shows, what destinations are having to pay. So it's also the return on investment now, because with digitization, how relevant are trade shows, everything will now be measured. But that, of course, you need to be on the ground. We all agree with that. But I think with that also now comes in digitization. People will question, that do I really need to be there, or can I just meet my exhibitor the way I'm meeting you now? Yeah, a lot for the industry to comprehend and see. Like every. So you already answered one of my questions, was that which geographies will open up first. So it looks like that Asia is taking the lead coming into Europe, and then, or will it happen all simultaneously?
The virus struck in Asia first.
Right. Right. Okay.
Move from east to west as we proceed, and likewise, China has allowed trade shows to run again, and we will see. We've seen trade shows in China, in mainland China, and in Hong Kong and in Taiwan, and we will see more over the summer. And I talked to the big organizers who are planning for shows with 150 to 200,000 attendees in July and August. So these shows will be back, and they will be big. Europe, as I mentioned, after July and August, will restart to see shows with more than 10 or 15 or 20,000 people. Okay. In the US, the first encouraging signs, the governor of Texas has announced phase 3 of the reopening. So all public spaces and the businesses are allowed to reopen at 50% of the occupancy.
That's right.
I was talking to a good friend from Las Vegas. Vegas reopened their casinos yesterday.
Yeah.
And they are hoping for a major announcement in mid-June in regards to the reopening of trade shows and business events.
Great. So every crisis has a silver lining. So what do you think is a silver lining here for out of this crisis for the trade show industry?
I think we all learn the real core of the business model of business events and meetings, and that is that face-to-face connection. Yeah. And you brought up the issue of ROI and of measurements. In many ways, in many conversations I'm having with companies who can't exhibit right now,
right.
The message they give me is, never did I miss being at a show so much than I miss it now. Digital produces a lot of data, and in that data there's some signal, but there's a lot of noise in the data.
Right.
And whatever, you can create a lot of really, really big numbers using digital marketing. But what ultimately matters is, did you connect people? Do you generate a deal?
Yeah.
Do you generate a deal? Yeah. And we now see, and this will probably be a strong legacy of COVID-19, we hear from the companies that they see in their order books, that they see in their revenue lines, that they see in their lead management, that there's a huge, huge gap, and they can actually pin that gap to the lack of the opportunity to exhibit.
Wow.
So a show not taking place leaves a big empty space in their profit and loss calculation. So, and this, if you wish, is the ultimate ROI.
Right. That's well, on that note, you know, that means that there is a vital role for exhibition and events in the recovery and transformation. You know, so it supports, boosts innovation and competitive, and meeting face to face and experiencing new products will always be the basis of for exchanges, building trust and striking deals. I think that's the bottom line. So we need our trade shows, we need our exhibitions to reboot this recovery, and the world learns to embrace the new normal as well at the same time. Thank you, Kai. Thank you so much for your time and for these really deep, important insights. And hopefully we meet in real time at one of the trade shows or at one of the UFI conferences. And I thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Sumaira. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and indeed, next time face to face.
Absolutely.